Today's guest had an outstanding career in a Majettes uniform before a couple of stops in college basketball. Joining me now, it's Holly Johnson, legendary Minot High player, and a couple of stops in college that we'll get into right off the bat here. First, what do you remember the most from your decorated career in high school, both on and off the court, Holly?
Yeah, I guess there's plenty of memories throughout my whole career, but specifically, obviously having fantastic teammates in Minot High and being able to play under Todd Magnuson was a blessing. And then coming back to Minot State, the two things that honestly stick out the most are a 7-game win streak at Minot State after they've had a couple tough years before that. And then just being able to be so supported in my hometown and being able to play in front of my friends and family.
What was it like being recruited by D1 schools right out of high school?
To be honest, I wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, and I think part of that was because I didn't play AAU ball. I didn't even know what it was until I was a senior. So I had played in a couple tournaments going into my senior season, and NDSU had reached out to me after watching me at a state basketball tournament. So I was super blessed to have had an offer, Division I with NDSU, and then the only other school that I had been recruited in high school, Division I wise, was South Dakota State. So to be honest, I wasn't actually really recruited by Div I schools. I was recruited by some local Division II schools and some JUCOs in the area, but I got really lucky with a good offer at NDSU.
All right, so you go to NDSU, then you head on to Grand Forks and Minot State. What was kind of the decision-making process like with regards to transferring versus just initially choosing a school?
Well, I think a lot of that decision after everything that happened at NDSU, there was a lot of emotional decisions made with that, which, you look back and you might have made some different decisions, or you might have some regrets, one would say, just as things didn't work out at UND for me. But I wouldn't change anything, and a lot of those choices just lead you to where you are now. So I wouldn't change my path in hindsight, even though sometimes during, those challenging times you might think otherwise.
Even, it's only been a couple of years. Shoot, I mean, I was telling you your last year at MSU not too long ago here. How different do you think is, like, the transfer portal and process for today's athletes compared to when you were making your decisions?
To be honest, I'm kind of unfamiliar with the transfer portal that they have in place now. When I was transferring from NDSU, I basically just had to get a release from the athletic department and from my head coach that I could speak to other schools, and I just had to send a letter that I was interested, and that allowed those schools to contact me. And if I'm being honest, I'm unsure of how the new portal works systematically at this point.
Same. I don't know, like, all the fine print, but I just thought it was interesting. Like, the most prominent thing you ever see is, like, these college quarterbacks that'll find some way to get a waiver where, like, they don't have to sit out a year anymore. Like, that kind of thing.
Right. So I got really lucky there. So when I was at NDSU, I had graduated early. So I graduated in the December of my senior year. So I had already started my master's, which allowed me to transfer to UND and play right away. And then transferring to Minot State, I only technically had a semester left on my eligibility clock, so I had to petition to the NCAA after all my injuries and everything that I went through at both of those other schools for them to grant me a full year, and I was really blessed with a 6th year, which honestly doesn't happen very often, so I felt really blessed to have that granted to me.
What did you learn a lot, or how did you grow as a player and person along this unique college career path that you had? I mean, you mentioned recovering from injuries and the decisions to move on to different schools.
The first word that comes to mind is just overcoming adversity, right? Like, all of those situations were extremely public. They weren't pretty. It's not the 20 and 10 headline that you'd like to have. It was kind of nasty headlines for a while. It was misperception by public. And so I had to overcome that personally, right? Because your life as an athlete in this, in a small state like this, becomes very public. And whether people, dive into it or not, it's still public knowledge. And it's just it's a lot to handle at the time, and you're a young kid, right? You're 21, 22 years old, and you just want to play hoops, or you just want to be on the field, or whatever it is that you do. So I think my ability to overcome adversity and handle adverse situations now in my professional career absolutely stems from just dealing with those situations in the past. And not that I dealt with them great then, but I learned how to now.
Did you really expect that kind of attention? I know it's a D1 school and you were a popular high school athlete here, but I mean, for you to say like you personally had to deal with like nasty headlines and stuff, I mean, what was anything that had to be set straight even past that?
Well, I feel like I've often been a misunderstood human in this area, right? A competitive female is honestly sometimes hard to come by, especially outright. So for me, it was just knowing that I had to stay true to myself, and I'm just a competitive athlete, and that's who I am. And a lot of people aren't okay with that. And so that was just, it's just challenging to kind of find who you are after you're a college athlete.
So you finished up your college career at Minot State. Regardless of being there or somewhere else, and you worked through all these injuries, why did you want to have that last year playing college basketball?
Playing basketball has been a part of my life since I was, 4 or 5 years old. My sister played ball at Minot State, and I grew up watching her and idolized her. My brother played at Minot High, and my dad played at Minot State as well. So it's just been ingrained in our family, and it just became a lot of personal goals for me. My a goal of my career was to go play professionally overseas in Australia after Minot State, and that was my plan. And then I just continued to face these injuries, and I realized that it wasn't worth it for me to put my body through that anymore. But for me to be able to finish my last year on a good note after a lot of the adversity that I faced at NDSU and UND, it just felt really good to be back home, supported by my community, my family, my friends, and just be able to finally play at a level that I knew I was capable of playing at, and just be able to finish on a good note.
What role did Sheila Green-Gerding have in you coming to MSU, considering Mark Groppe was going to be your coach?
So at the time when I was coming back and trying to get my eligibility figured out and squared away, that I knew I would have a full year, Coach Gerding was actually who I was in contact with. She was still the head coach at that time. And like my sister had played for her before, so she was somebody that I had always had, contact with just as a person in my life. So she is definitely a main reason that I was coming back here, and I was looking forward to having that coach-player relationship with her for that last year. And then obviously things had changed with that situation, so Coach Groppe came in, and he was willing to have me on his team, and I was really grateful.
When you look at each stop in high school and college, who would you say has been the toughest player to either score against or toughest player to guard in high school and college?
I always like that question. Alex from Minot Daily News asked me the same question when he was doing all of those COVID interviews to keep people up to speed. And my answer is always the same. When I was at NDSU, we played Mississippi State, who went on to be, I believe, in the national championship that year, and we got slaughtered. And we were on their home turf, and I was guarding this girl who was just extremely athletic, 6'5", built like no other, and I was boxing her out after one of her teammates had shot a three-pointer, and I thought I was for sure going to get this rebound. I was in such great position. She had the ball in her hands and shot over me before I even knew it. And we were going the other way. So that was an eye-opening experience. We play Division I ball, and mid-major, I have respect for all levels, and mid-major and high major there's a tier difference there. And these girls, women that are playing this sport they're incredible athletes, and I think that they just continue to progress over time. So that would be a moment that sticks out in my brain in my career.
All right, so Sheila remaining a big reason why you're back here as a player. How certain were you about coming back to this area, not only just as the athlete and helping out as a coach or whatever, but also just professionally post-grad?
Yeah, so like I said, my original plan was to go to Australia and play, and I had an agent, and we were working on finding a team and everything, and once that became real and I started to train, I just, again, realized that it was not fit for my body. So I decided to stick around here, and I was originally going to try and find a coaching job, and then a connection in town had another connection for me in the medical device industry, and I decided to take the plunge. So it was just kind of one thing led to another, and I'm just still in Minot.
All right, sweet. So you were a grad assistant, right? I mean, when you get done playing, what kind of new perspective did you gain from that compared to being on the court and playing college basketball?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was a grad assistant for a short period, 6 months, and I would say you don't realize what goes into planning a practice. You don't realize what goes into a scout. You don't realize all of the planning, like even just to get food on the bus, get these girls corralled. Like there's just a lot of leadership that goes into a coaching staff, and it just is not a one-man show. There's a lot of responsibility weighing on every staff member that ultimately shines light on the head coach and your program. So that was a big deal to me, and so I tried to obviously shine positive light with on Coach Groppe, with him trusting me to be on his staff, and it was a really good experience for me.
So I guess as a player, when you're given like a schedule or a workout plan, a regiment, a scouting report, maybe you're getting like close to the final step of what it is, and then you just learned how all that stuff came together behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so tell me how this connection with Bishop Bryan came about, coaching as assistant there with the high school.
Yeah, so I obviously after I got into the medical device industry, I was in the position for just about a year, and I had reached out to Roger Coleman. It was the only spot I knew of that was looking for a coach, or kind of was looking for some extra help. So I had reached out to him and just letting him know that I was available, and the connection just worked out. So I was able to get my basketball fix at the high school level last year, and I really enjoyed it. It was kind of an eye-opening experience for me, and the girls at Bishop Bryan are fantastic to work with. Just a great group of kids. So I really enjoyed that last year.
Sometimes when I'm following who's going to be like a head coach at different places, I got to step back and remember that, this is like high school sports and they have other jobs. They're not like college coaches where like this is their life per se. So sometimes jobs can get in the way of head coaching gigs, and I don't know what it's like with the medical device stuff that you do, but how much of a desire do you have to be maybe a head coach, and how soon could that maybe happen if you'd like to?
Yeah, so I would love to be a head coach in high school. Obviously, a lot of my background educationally is in sport administration, sport management, in that space. So I've always thought that I would be involved in athletics. So the fact that I wasn't was really challenging for me, and which brought me to reach out to Roger Coleman. So I would love to be a head coach. I don't know that if I'm with my current career, I don't know that that's possible. My schedule is on call and things like that. So my availability is far and few between, which is also nice with Roger Coleman's understanding that sometimes I'm just in and out. So right now it's perfect for what I want to get my basketball fix, and I'm just hoping that I can help grow some of these young girls' skill sets, and not only that, but just help them build, positive confidence and character as they grow into women, and they'll eventually go on to be in the workplace.
This past season, you also got to get your start in color commentating some Majettes basketball games. What's the prep for being a broadcaster like compared to getting ready to face off with a team 5-on-5?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's actually very similar. Doing color, I feel like there's not as much pressure on me, and I appreciate Holberg for taking the brunt on that. It's super fun to work with him, and I had a blast doing those couple games, but being able to just prepare and know your opponent, right? So I would honestly say that a lot of it is the same. You don't have to know as many of the specifics of, is she a right-handed kid and she's only going right, force her left, those kinds of things are nice to be able to pick up when you're doing color, but you don't necessarily have to know them beforehand, right? Because you're not the one getting to the rim when you've got the headset on. So that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed doing that with Holberg last year.
So you're a Majette doing a Minot High girls broadcast. With that in mind, do you think it'd be tougher or easier to be a color commentator for a school other than your alma mater?
I think you might just have a little different perspective. Obviously, it doesn't hit home like it does when you're in your home gym, and this is where, you spent hours and hours playing yourself, and now you're able to watch these younger, girls play, generations, if you wish, and it was a lot of fun to do it at the home high school, but I would love to be able to do it for other schools, and I think it's just a matter of preparing yourself a little bit more too. When you're in town, you hear common names, you know of tendencies once you watch a couple of games, but when you're on the road or you're doing teams and you're announcing girls that you're unfamiliar with, I think it's just a matter of some preparation. So I don't know that it would be harder, just maybe a little different perspective.
All right, so I want to kind of get your forecast right now with the programs locally that you've been a part of. Majettes look decent with Jason Shores in that first year, and the Beavers obviously still working on their way up. What do you think has to happen for these teams to make that next competitive step or leap up the standings here soon?
Yeah, I think that both programs they've done a great job the last few years, and I think it's just a matter of wanting to be in the gym and wanting to get it done. I think that separates the middle of the pack to the ones and two seeds of the world. So just being able to have that will to win and coming together as a team, I think that team chemistry in girls basketball in North Dakota is really hard to find. So I think that if you can instill that as a coach somehow and then have leadership on the floor to be able to translate that to the rest of your girls is just a really big deal. So I think just having that will and being able to buy into your program is a really big deal.
So clearly most of your pedigree is coming from basketball, okay, but you're still getting educated in a sports management realm. Would you have any desire to work in any other sports besides basketball? I mean, what kind of capacity are you looking for?
Well, originally with the sport administration, with a sport administration degree, I mean, anything administrative-wise in athletics is available to you. With that background, I'm currently not using the degree that I have. Specifically, obviously being in the medical device industry, but I honestly don't know. It's a great question. I'm going day by day, and I'm really enjoying the career path that I have been able to follow so far, and being able to get my fix athletically, doing the color and helping out at Bishop Ryan is enough for me right now. So I think that I'm good with where I'm at. Being outside of athletics a little bit, which I never thought that I would be, but it's a little refreshing, and it's a totally different world, different people, and just a different vibe. So I've been enjoying what I've been doing so far.
I was wondering if there was a connection between these two things. Does your experience overcoming the injuries that you had kind of lead to wanting to have this job too? I mean, you're helping people get better.
Yeah, so being able to be a small part of patient care is extremely rewarding and satisfying, and you're around all of these high level people, right? Nurses, doctors, scrub techs, and all these people play a huge role in a surgery, and it's really fun to watch all the moving parts, and to be a part of that process is really rewarding. So I don't know that, one might think from an outside perspective that it would have led me there, but they're totally different worlds, and being in athletics and being injured before certainly helps me understand what a patient might be going through. Not that I have anything to do with their post-care or anything like that, but it's just a way to kind of understand the process as a whole.
All right, so you got your hands in athletics, and you got the medical device field rolling for you right now, and that's going to be going on here for a little while, it seems. So left turn here, something else that you've been involved in. Just want to get your take and just open the floor for you. What's up with Dak Jam, and what gets you into that so much?
Yeah, so I'm really connected to that with, I guess you could say, the founders of Dak Jam, and I've had a really close relationship with them for a long time, and they asked a group of people to be influencers for this music and arts festival, and I think that they've got a really good thing going. And obviously with COVID this year, they had to put a halt to the festival this past August, bummer, especially with the state fair being canceled. It would have been nice to, have something for people to do. So that's really their goal. They're just trying to bring things to Minot. They're trying to bring, just new activities and something different for everybody to do and to gather. And I think that they've got a really good thing going.
And I know we had Easton Bennett on one of the early episodes here talking about his creative media and him being involved in that too. And I won't deep dive with you because they did a podcast episode. What was it, Dak World, where you guys talk a lot of throwback stuff. What was it like just going back memory lane for that show so people can check it out?
That was really fun. I did a podcast with Easton. I think it was one of the first ones, and it was hilarious. We had a blast with it. Easton's great at what he does, and the Dak Jam crew had prepared really well for that experience. So that was a blast. And they're just trying to have fun with it too, right? Like it's a music and arts festival. They're trying to get people out, get people engaged. They've got a ton of content flowing through social media. So, those throwbacks are fun, and it just reminds you of things that you probably wouldn't have thought of on your own. But now that you're seeing all this stuff, online, the Toy Stories and the Pop Rocks and the Juicy Couture jumpsuits in the 90s and the early 2000s, it's just funny, and they're having a good time with it, and I think people are starting to catch on.
I think there is so many events, Holly, that happen in Minot where they say, like, oh my God, we're bringing this type of thing to Minot, and it happens over and over again. And it's not even a knock on Dak Jam because I think it's freaking awesome. But, I mean, what makes this event really special? Because, I mean, like, you've lived here all your life, and you've probably seen, like, that kind of bill for an event a lot.
Yeah, so, Dak Jam used to be rocking the lot at Elevation, and it was always, like, the hairballs of the world coming to perform. And I think people around here just want to get out and do something, right? I mean, nobody's dumb. All of us go to the bar and we go to sporting events. There's not a lot to do here. So for them to bring a festival, not only with a concert, but they've got, they had like spin boards last year, and they had a guy doing art live, and they had different kinds of food trucks, and there was something for everyone there. And I like that it was all ages. You didn't have to be 21 plus. It could be a family event. It could be a night out with your friends. So I think that piece is really interesting to me, and I like that it's outside too, right? Like they're trying to do something during the summer months where people can be outside and just enjoy themselves.
Yeah, those bands were always like Pop Rocks and Hairball. And I don't even know what the band was in the other tent last year, but their closing out band was freaking sick too, and I hope they come back. And obviously it sucks that it didn't happen this year, but I mean, definitely, I guess it's on my calendar, 11 months from now, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I'll count down the days.
Yeah. All right, Holly, so really appreciate your time, just looking back at all your accomplishments, and just keep in touch, and we'll see you when you're a head coach. You're doing whatever at Dak Jam. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. I appreciate it.